Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Rehab Guru webinar. We're really lucky to have Ollie and Mike Jamesy here as our two special guests this evening, which we'll get to in a moment. Firstly, my name's Simon Taylor. I'm one of the co-founders of Rehab Guru and the technical lead. And we're also joined by the other half of the founding team, David Barrow, who's a physio by background and head of product. Firstly, the obligatory housekeeping stuff before we get into things. This webinar is going to be really informal and chilled out. It's first of a number of sessions that we'll be running, and those are going to be run to try and keep our community up to date, as well as trying to engage with as many of our users as possible. So look out for future webinars, especially ones that are going to be run in more of a working group capacity where we can try and find new ideas and kind of run things past you so that we can really hone the product to what people need. We're going to try and keep this webinar to 1 hour. And if you've got any questions, please drop them into the chat. We'll cover as many of the pre-registration questions as possible throughout the demo or at the end. And one of the questions that was raised by a number of people that actually aren't already Rehab Guru users was, what exactly is Rehab Guru? So it's probably best that we cover this one off first. So Rehab Guru is digital exercise management system and patient management platform that provides its service to thousands of individuals, clinics, and enterprise organizations such as the Ministry of Defense and NHS all around the world. Some of the features include 5,000 plus exercises, telehealth, treatment notes, PROM and PREM measurements, remote patient monitoring, diary and booking system, and those include payments, of course. As well as the subject of this evening's webinar, which is a ability to connect to scan.com so that you can request imaging, be that MRI, ultrasound, or CT scans. And that's really quick and easy, as you'll see this evening. Okay, so without further ado, on with our guests. As I said, we're lucky to be joined by Mike James, aka the Endurance Physio, and Ollie Coburn, the founder of Rehab and part of the Basrat leadership team. Guys, welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and let everybody know why you're famous. Mike, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, infamous more than famous, I think. But yeah, thanks for the invite. I've known Dave and Si for a long time through our time in the military. That's where my career started, in the military as a physical training instructor, then as an exercise rehab instructor. I did a degree in sports rehab with Basrat themselves. And since then, sort of 10 years ago, switched hats or dual-hatted as a physio. I worked in pretty much most sort of sectors. And for the last 5 years, we've been back in Wales, where I've set up my business. I run a clinic with some teaching, online, in person, and a lot of different facets to it. I work with everything from sort of elite athletes right down to the park runner and everyday athlete. And pertinent to tonight, there's probably been many times in different hats along the way over those sort of 15, 20 years where I've used various avenues of imaging, and has probably given me quite an eclectic sort of outlook on the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamesy. Ollie.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Why am I famous? I'm not. I think I just do a lot of shouting on the internet. and like a lot of people have more than one job. So principally work for Basrat, which is where our working relationship between myself, Si, and Dave started. Because we provide Rehab Guru as a platform, as a membership benefit to our members. And then more recently, Dave and Si have been extremely supportive of my social enterprise venture, Rehab, in partnering with us to provide Guru as a platform that we use to pretty much run the whole back end of Rehab, with a few other things plugged into it in and around it. Clinically, I've had a mixed background. I don't do so much anymore with spinning so many plates, but a little bit of sport, mostly private practice, and little bits of case management and things like that, where there was lots of imaging referral going on, lots of clinical decision making. So again, bringing a varied perspective, I think, to the table, and looking forward to the chat.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Ollie. Before we get into the demo, I'm really keen to hear from you both on the kind of experience of imaging and referral of patients. I've not been clinical for the best part of 10 years, did the same degree as Jamesy, and was working in the Ministry of Defence as a exercise rehabilitation instructor. So not branded as a physio at all. And I could only imagine that my path to referring a patient, if I was a practicing sports therapist, would be pretty difficult. So, Jamesy, how would you refer for imaging, given your private practice at the moment?
Yeah, I think this is probably the most individualized arena to work in, because often as a private therapist, you're trying to establish those networks and connections yourself. There's been a lot of groundwork on my part of establishing relationships with local GP practices, some local sort of orthopedic and sports med consultants, and then being able to just tap into some of the connections I've built up over the years. So I probably have it slightly different to some therapists near me. One of the things I do a little bit of these days is mentoring other therapists. Mm-hmm. And you can often sort of feel, even within a relatively small geographical area, that sometimes it's a bit of a postcode lottery about who you're near, where you buy, what access you've got to certain things, how proactive you are at establishing those referral pathways. So I would say I've probably got more access and a better system than some, but it's something that's after been worked on, developed, nurtured. And I definitely understand why some people will have problems, particularly early in their career, or if they relocate somewhere new, of starting and establishing and even knowing where to or how to start establishing pathways of referrals that can ultimately make your life a bit easier.
Sure. So like that referral pathway, is that letter into somebody and they are accepting that because they know you, they know your background, that you've got credibility, there's an existing kind of relationship there, and therefore they would accept that referral. But I guess other people wouldn't get the time of day from some of these.
Potentially, yeah. And what you normally find is the more you become familiar with someone, the more your working relationship develops, that system probably softens a little.
Sure.
So there's certain consultants I've worked with, there's certain sort of people that I can probably just pick up the phone and have a quick chat to, and I can get someone referred to relatively quickly. Sure. If I use my current role as an example, although being Welsh, when we moved back to Wales 5 years ago, it's not a hometown, it's not where I've ever practiced or lived professionally. So I was starting off on square one. So it was very much having coffee meetings with local GPs, really? Getting them to trust and build a rapport with me, explaining how I worked, what my background was, learning about their systems. And even within a number of GP practices, I've got different pathways and relationships, and some are very formal, letter-driven. Some get ignored, thrown away, and others are very much sort of informal and well-established. I think part of that process almost is once you've made those connections, almost it's developing and nurturing your understanding of even how to word the letter. What are you asking or demanding for a referral, and understanding who you're dealing with? Because again, I've seen some therapists with a really sensible, diligent referral to someone that I think is perfectly sort of appropriate, but just a couple of words that will annoy or irritate a certain doctor, and that's just gone straight to the bottom of the in tray. So it's almost, there's multi-layered ways of developing that, but yeah, it's slightly different with different people.
Yeah, seems
depends on which part of the system you're actually referring through as well. And I mean by that, you could be going down an NHS path, you could be going through a private medical insurance route, or it could be somebody that's willing to self-fund that scan. Even in the NHS, the pathways are different depending on locality. So one GP might have a really easy route locally to be able to refer for imaging. Another might have to send them down the MSK pathway where they're seen by an NHS physio first, which can be a however many week wait. So there are constraints there. Even PMI, that person will usually be case managed by the insurance company. So even you as a treating clinician going back to the insurer and saying, we think this is what's required, it's still not your clinical decision.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So it's tricky, I think, and like Mike touched on, if even when it's self-funding, there's a trust relationship that has to be there with whoever's accepting that imaging referral.
Yeah. So everyone's got to do their kind of due diligence at every layer, and that's probably, for good reason. And I guess that there's a lot of kind of narrative around imaging, and it can sometimes get a bit of bad rap. Can you comment on any of that type of stuff? Like, what is bad imaging? What's because we've all heard those patients and said, I need an MRI for my back, and that is their kind of opening gambit. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. Have you got any comments around that, Ollie?
Yeah. So it's all context dependent, isn't it? I think for me, if I'm going to consider imaging, I'm considering imaging because I have a suspicion that physio and whatever modalities, treatments, rehab plans you want to put under that umbrella might not be the best treatment or course of action for that patient based on my assessment. So I'm thinking, okay, well, is it something MSK, or is it something MSK that's of a severity that requires surgery or some other kind of input? And then using whichever form of imaging it might be to try and better understand that. Imaging for imaging's sake, clearly, isn't the right path to be going down, isn't recommended in any of the clinical guidelines. But I also understand why that happens in some quarters. I think in mainstream healthcare, not good. In sport, when the resources are there and widely available, and that's the environment, then hey, look, crack on.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very context dependent.
Sure, yeah. Have you got any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I think I would say, as an industry, as a therapy industry, I think often what we lack is consensus on it all. I think people have a personal opinion based on their experiences around imaging. The narrative, I think the 10,000-foot view of it, we're probably a little bit better on. We're better on sort of our understanding around, what a degenerative low back pain imaging result may mean or not mean, and how we can speak to the patients about it. Yeah. I think if we turn and face therapists to other healthcare professional, that's where we start to lose our confidence. It's I don't really want to ask or suggest this, or I don't want to ask. A lot of the time, it's just the level of education. We don't have a consensus even on the education that we all have. So we base a lot of it around our own confidence levels, however high or low they are. And I think we need to be much better, particularly around the sort of the so what of things. You can ask a lot of therapists, they understand which imaging types are for which potential conditions, and the general thing, well, I'm ruling out red flags or whatever. But where we sometimes what's the so what of this? What is it going to do to your treatment plan or your management of this patient if you do or don't have this? And what's that bigger picture thinking around it? And we're often shy or cautious to have those conversations because, as we all are, most of the time, nobody likes to admit what they do know or don't know.
Yep.
So it's like, well, I'll just dip my head behind the parapet for this one and, pass it on or do whatever I do. So I think we generally just need to be better at just
noticed that
sort of discussing it.
Sorry, I'm just quickly muting some people. Yeah, I mean, you hit upon two really good points there. I think that the communication to patients is a big thing that I remember from being clinical. It's like you're almost this part psychologist, coach, mentor, where you've got to translate what has come in from the imaging report and then relay that in a terminology that they will understand. Because if they read what is in the report as to, whatever degenerative tissue and early onset of various conditions, I think that there's lots of evidence out there as if you scan asymptomatic people, then they'll, I don't know the percentages, but a lot of people will be presenting with the exact same degenerative and wear and tear. There's a great term. That's how unclinical I am now, guys.
That's very true though, Si, and I think that's that's a difficult conversation to have, an important one, because people come in with a perception that, well, if I have some imaging on XYZ injury, we'll be able to see exactly what's going on and what the cause of my pain is. And obviously that's not always the case, because you might just uncover things that were always there and always have been there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't think that's generally understood. And why would it be? Most the public.
Yeah.
And it works both sides of the fence, because I'm anecdotally plucking this number out of memory, but I would probably think that of every 10 patients or athletes I see who have come to me with an imaging report, 7 or 8, I probably have to break down that and explain in layman's terms what that does and doesn't mean. And most of these have had these imaging. I've been a referral pathway from a orthopedic consultant or a rheumatologist or something. So they've come from the top of the tree in hierarchical terms with no explanation whatsoever. So as therapists, we then have to learn how to interpret these things to the athlete and the patient. But likewise, I've turned my hat now and sort of gone, how do I bridge the conversation with a group of radiologists, for example, or doctors or whatever, of going, this is why you need to explain it to people, because once you know what it means, and you know but you don't know the implications on that person, and we're left to fix that problem afterwards. And I mean, I work with predominantly sort of athletes, so I'll have someone coming in who's got a huge history of running, swimming, cycling, whatever, and a lifetime ahead of them wanting to do the same. And they've got something that's very mild on imaging that I really don't care about, in want of a better phrase. Yeah. And they are thinking their running career is over. And I'm like, did they not explain this at all? No, he just said, there was some subchondral this and all that. Ossification, it must be terrible. I haven't run for 4 weeks until I saw you. So to improve our understanding and work in relationship with imaging on the whole, we really need to be looking up and down that totem pole to how to correspond and negotiate things with the athlete and the patient, but also with the people who, and I used to say should know better, but I think sometimes just don't know better. They don't know, because they look at images, they look at screens, they have a very mechanical management of a patient. Yep. But the emotional side, they never try to deal with or have to deal with. So, So again, I've even in the recent years, certainly since I've been home, I've had evening sessions with GP practice of just explaining things like, fears and beliefs and yellow flags and all of those things, of how they would impact someone with the little things that they say in the pressures or the time that they have to work with. And I think that's where we can all get better at stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. I think there's loads of, as we've integrated this kind of capability, we have been very cautious of, greasing the wheels of getting imaging. So education is a massive thing. And as we've tried to look out there as to what education there is, it's a bit of a minefield. People know stuff. They've either kind of gone off on their own back, like you have, developed relationships, developed their experience and knowledge, but there really isn't a lot out there. So Dave, I was just going to come to you on one thing that you spoke to me about a couple of months ago about private medical insurers that are now starting to image far earlier, and the incidence of catching cancers and things like that in the very early stages are starting to become more prevalent. So there's that idea of imaging early is actually quite beneficial. Have you got any further comments on that?
Yeah, so I think some of the interesting results came out of sort of public health. So having a lower threshold for scanning people who perhaps had persistent pain. And the interesting thing when we look at, let's say, for example, tumors, it's not until people are in like stage 3, stage 4 of cancer that they start actually developing the symptoms of, for example, unexplained weight loss, loss of appetite. So what they were finding was that actually they were detecting cancers much earlier in people where they weren't actually expecting to see cancer. they were patients who maybe had gone to a consultant, and that consultant was the seventh person that patient had seen. And it, James, you and I worked at Headley Court, and it seemed as though every person that came in for a MIAC, for an assessment, was getting a scan, but actually they'd had their pain for 5 or 10 years. They might not have had a scan. And that sort of seemed part of the course. And I, as a younger person then, I still do sort of throw up in my mind what we were just talking about. Well, when do you throw for a scan? When do you not? And I remember being a student, we've got maybe some newly qualified people that are going to listen to this podcast. And when I think back to when I was a student, scanning was so different, because there was, £600 for a scan, and they were difficult to get. And, you'd hear in the news about, so-and-so footballer has just got a scan literally 2 hours after the injury. And so people come into our clinics thinking, well, I'm going for private healthcare, I'm paying, I'm going to be able to get this. I'm going to be able to be treated like Rafael Nadal. And, and sometimes that is relevant. We've all had those people that have come in and they said, oh, I've got the London Marathon next week. And you're like, all right, tell me about your symptoms. Well, I've had this shin pain for 9 months, and, they've just got raging MTSS, or maybe, something worse. And you just think, God, what do you think I am, a magician? Like, it's really, really difficult. And actually, in that situation, a scan would be really difficult to make one of those decisions that, I would have made at Quins or Fulham of, can this person play on Saturday? And that's a really relevant use. I'm not necessarily trying to work out whether they've got a stress fracture or not, but for that person, it's the person's goals that, for me, also have to be taken into consideration beyond the the objective assessment and everything else that's going on. And trying to remove that judgment, because I think, Jamesy, you hit on it there. When we actually speak to our other therapists, when we speak to our peers, I still feel a huge amount of sort of like self-imposed judgment of, oh my God, what if someone finds out I sent for an MRI? Like, is Twitter going to turn on me? And and actually weighing up the patient goals along with any concerns that we may have, I think are really interesting. I wonder what you would advise to newly qualified people, because you do mentor, both of you mentor lots of people who maybe haven't had lots of experience with surgeons, with consultants, with band aids. Maybe it's someone that's graduated and they're starting out in a couple of clinics on their own, maybe sports therapists. What sort of advice would you give them with regards to imaging? And are there any resources or any mentoring schemes that you run?
Yeah, so I think my take on that would be, you have to do what you think is right clinically. It might not be right or wrong, but you have to do that. And then if your decision, having worked with a patient over some time, or just assess them and have the initial feeling of, yeah, I think this needs a scan, it would always be better, in my view, to make that referral, or speak to the GP or whatever pathway it is that you're going down, and end up with egg on your face because it gets rejected, than having not made that referral at all and potentially miss something that was important, right? In terms of sources, and your judgment will improve. Okay, as you accumulate clinical hours, you see more patients, more conditions, and get more familiar with what is and isn't normal, then of course your judgment's going to improve over time. As far as information goes, there's all the clinical guidelines are out there, aren't they, for the common conditions? So nice guidelines for low back pain, for example. We've got a whole section on scanning and when it isn't indicated. So just being familiar with those is a good start point. Same for the research that's coming out, standard reviews on imaging when it is and isn't indicated. And then there's some really handy websites out there like Physiopedia that I lean on sometimes. If there's conditions that I'm not as familiar with, or I want to check my clinical reasoning or whatever, because Physiopedia usually will have a write-up on a topic, but also links out to loads of other resources. And that's a pretty good touch point if you're a newer therapist and you just want to sort of to check yourself.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd agree wholeheartedly with that. I think it's the layers of that learning onion what we're really easy to access is you'll find some webinars, some blogs, a couple of podcasts that will give you the hard learning, which scans for which tissue type, which this, which that, when you should, when you shouldn't, red flags. What you need to peel back more, which is the same as any facet of therapy, is the softer side of it. And a lot of that for me is just monitoring, watching people, giving up your time to be with people as like almost a work experience in some ways. I remember working in occupational health not long after I'd left the military. I only spent a year there, and I had a really good sort of therapist that was in charge of the team. And we had a clinic one day in a business, which was a factory type place. We saw about 12, 13 people, all with general low back pain related to work. And about 9 people in, no hint of any imaging. And then all of a sudden, someone came in who I generally was like, no different to the last 9, boom, sent off for imaging. I just couldn't get my brain around why is this guy going and no one else is? Is it you've only got 1 to give a day? Do you only image 1 in 10? What is it? And effectively, it was the chat after the clinic where the guy had gone, I've worked with this guy before, I've worked with his wife before. He will not engage with rehab until he's completely satisfied that there's nothing sinister or serious going on, and the image will give us that confidence. I've worked with him before. It justifies the cost because I can get him back to work quicker when he adheres and buys into rehab. And I'm like, cool. So there's that soft sort of personalized bit, which you can't learn in a lot of ways. And obviously there's a lot of therapists now who are independent. They work on their own. They don't have a large team or community around them. But we've come out of a pandemic, which has taught us that it's really easy to build a network organically online. You've got Basrat, you've got yourselves as Rehab Guru, as a family of therapists that can get so much more out of the platform by going, right, here's, drop a message into some other Rehab Guru therapists and members going, has anyone seen this type of imaging before? Or what would you do with this case study? And suddenly you're starting to have a whole team around you with varied experience and varied people all online. But all of a sudden, nobody's a lone wolf anymore, should feel like a lone wolf, tucked away in the little quiet corner of their town or village, thinking, there's no one around me that I can learn from.
Twitter's a great resource for that as well. There's so many times, and I don't know why this sticks in my head as an individual that's really good at doing this, but Rob Bevan, Cairo, quite often if he gets a case presentation that he's just not happy with, or he's just got a gut feeling about, he'll throw it out on Twitter. And I know you'll have seen it, Mike. And there's always plenty of people, very, very experienced senior docs and therapists of all descriptions chipping in with advice. And I think for that, if you can ignore the argumentative side of Twitter, it is a really, really good resource for that community of practice.
Yeah. And you've got there's others. Then you've got another one that jumps out. Dr. James Nork is a sports med consultant down in London. Often daily, almost all I'd say, does he daily shares an image of a patient that he's worked with. Now, same as any other therapist, I'm looking at the image. It's like black and white jelly to me. I don't know what's going on in the image. But I've moved past the point of where we all start of going, because we thought that's what we needed to do. I want to know, I want to interpret that MRI or that CT or that X-ray. I mean, I've just given up on that. And because mainly I've learned that I don't really need to. Yeah. Someone else's job is to interpret it. My job's to understand the so what of it.
Yeah.
And in his posts, when you look past it, he gives the history, starts explaining his rationale about why he referred them. The possible differential diagnosis. And all of a sudden, you know, every day for 10 minutes, you can learn something about imaging. And most of these guys are pretty good, and girls are pretty good with their time and availability. If you drop them a little message and say, you know, got a patient similar to something you showed last week, what's your thoughts? What's your thinking? Then most of them respond in a kind way to it.
Awesome. Yeah, great. Thanks very much. I think what we've hit upon there for the last 20 minutes of chat is that it's pretty complex area. And when when we were going through chats and looking at partnering with scan.com, we were asking those same types of things. And, like, well, how are you going to support our users to access this kind of imaging resource? How are you going to look after them, make sure that they've got this comfort blanket, both clinically and educationally as well? And we're really, really pleased with what we heard and have seen from the guys. So that's why we've kind of chosen to partner with them. There will be lots of resources coming out from the scan.com team, things like webinars, education material, and so on. But I'll just dive into the demo. And one of the great things about this is that you can perform a referral from within Rehab Guru, and then it will go to a clinician who's really experienced, in order to essentially vet your work and double check to make sure that that patient is, kind of relevant for a scan. And, there is money changing hands between scan centers and scan.com. And, the cynic would say, well, they're just going to pass everything through. However, I can kind of guarantee that is not the case. We kind of dived into that, and they do turn a lot of inappropriate referrals away because it's just not worth their reputation to pass everything through like that. So they're very much on this same page as we've all been talking about responsible imaging. So keep follow the guys on Twitter and social media and see when they're pushing out some training resources and things. As you join me on the screen share just now, I'm just going to step through the process of requesting a scan from within Rehab Guru. So first off, you'd want to connect to scan.com, and you do that from within the account page and then integrations. I'm already connected with this account, but you just click on connect next to the scan.com logo, and that will step you through the connection process, which is essentially just 2 clicks. There's nothing to input. It will happen all automatically. Once that's done, you can go into a patient. We'll just create a new patient for now. And then you've got imaging down the left-hand side. So imaging is where we'll do all of our referrals and also look at existing bookings. And it was also where we'll see the results come back as well. So there is an imaging guide where you can read all of the details about different modalities, types of scans, how to decide, typical use cases, the post-referral steps, and so on. So definitely worth giving that a read. And when you're ready to book a scan, you can just click on New Booking. It will automatically fill out the patient details. If they have already got a mobile number in the patient details page, it will automatically fill that in for you. However, for now, I'll just put something in here. You can choose the modality, MRI, ultrasound, CT. For this demo, we'll just do an MRI, and then you can choose the body part. So here we'll go for the left knee. We also need the patient's date of birth for the referrals so that we understand both how old they are and also some verification that the right patient has turned up and so on. So I'll just fill this in. And then we also want the additional information around this patient's condition. So as I said, I'm no longer clinical and I haven't been for over a decade. So I'll just put something in here. But Jamesy, like, what would you be putting in your letter? I know it's a very, very difficult question, but do you have a sort of a structure that you would put in there? So like your past medical history, the incident, the presentation, and so on. Do you have any sort of
generally
structure to that?
It's similar to very much. I try to ask what I want them to do without asking what I want them to do.
Right. Okay.
So it's very much something along the lines of would appreciate your thoughts on potential imaging for this based on the suspected blah blah blah. due to these following signs and symptoms. And what I would often do if it's an existing patient that maybe you've seen for a period of time, not responding to. So that just clarifies that we've done the things that might be that first line of stuff.
Like it, yeah. Yeah, okay. I see you nodding there, Ollie. Do you have anything else you want to add on that?
Not too much. I'm really, really snappy with mine.
Sure.
Mine, if I'm listing clinical features, I'll keep it to the ones that I believe indicate a scan is required, and I'll usually start with red flags if there's red flags present. And then other clinical features that might suggest that another form of intervention, such as possible surgery, is required. Okay. And then it'd be, look, that's what I found with my assessment. I'd appreciate your input and, your advice on the management.
Nice. Okay, so this information will be going to the scan.com clinical team for them to review. So kind of bearing that in mind, and what Ollie and Mike have said there, trying to include that type of detail will be really beneficial for them. So I've submitted that booking, and if I click on the booking, I can see the kind of status of that at the moment. So the booking has been submitted. We see the modality, body parts, the notes, and so on. And what's just popped up in my inbox is essentially an email which just says your clinician has referred you for a scan. So this goes directly to the patient. And then they click on the button saying complete booking. So I've just clicked on that button there. And here, this is where we can search for our scanning center. So if I just put in London, there's hundreds of scan centers around the UK. Here you'll see, because this is just like a demo account, we're working in the sandbox because I'm not actually sending in real referrals right now. So you'll see that everything is, £310, but the price varies around the country. You'll see some more expensive scans, some cheaper scans, and so on. So you select your center and then select that on the map. Then you can choose when you want booking or when you want to go for your scan. Oh, sorry, the patient will be choosing when they want to go for their scan. So this is just an example of how quickly this could be performed. So we've got scan availability on Friday. So then you can select the time that the patient would like to have their scan. Then it steps through all of the safety questions. So here we've got any previous surgery, previous imaging, and any allergies, and it will also ask for their GP's name and their city. Clicking next will step through the safety questions and the second part of it. Again, if they click yes on any of these, then it will ask for further information down at the bottom. And over on the right-hand side, we've got our summary. And I will just step through this very quickly. So this is all the patient that's doing this. So there's no clinician sort of stepping them through it. Essentially, the booking has been made. It is now in the patient's hands, so that they've got a lot of choice around what they, where they book, the price that they pay, whether they want an open scanner, and so on. And once that's done, they can pay for the scan there and then. So I'll just put in some, whoops. So we're all in a test environment here, and I don't think I'm giving away any of my credit card details. Again, just all test information. Some steps to show that they have consented to the details been passed to a third party. Obviously, they've been passed on to the imaging center, and also the privacy policy and terms and conditions. Then they can pay for their scan. You can also do the PayPal pay later and breaking down of payments. So once that has been done, the patient will receive further information from the imaging center, sort of preparation, any special prep that they would need to do. For us over in Rehab Guru, I can refresh this page, and then I can see that the status of this booking is confirmed. I can see their safety questions. I can see the scanning center that they have selected. I can even view that on a map. So if I want to know where they're heading, and all of the history of this booking, so when they perform different steps is all recorded as well. So once the scan has been performed, we would then be able to step into that exact same imaging summary for that particular patient and for that particular booking. And then up here, we've got scan documents. So here we've got the patient report. We can click on that, and then we would be able to see the patient reports. This is all redacted information. This is completely fake, so there's nothing been given away here. That patient report is all encrypted in the cloud. So when you actually click on that link, there is a secure handshake that goes on. So that link, couldn't be shared with anybody. It's got to be accessed via this secure portal. And in a nutshell, that is it. Ollie, Mike, I know you've seen it before, Ollie.
Silky smooth.
Silky smooth, yeah.
I was
that fear of doing a live demo. It's kind of like the curse of Apple.
I can, from a patient perspective, I'm comparing it to my ongoing referral for my wrist MRI, probably from the bike crash, the infamous bike crash.
Oh yeah.
And that involved, I think, 3 phone calls, a form being emailed for the safety questions that I have to print out and return to get my appointment confirmed in 2 weeks' time. So compared, it's so far on technologically in terms of its integration than what exists previously, particularly in the NHS.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to kind of figure out, and kind of keen to hear from you, Jamesy. And we are friends; we go back a long way. But it's keen to hear the bad stuff and the good stuff. Like, would you kind of maintain your existing relationships? And that's what I've heard. Kind of people would, much prefer to, leverage the local kind of relationship. So do you have any thoughts on this as where it sits in your current kind of toolkit?
I think with the thing that I still get frustrated at with therapists across the board is the ones who just are so one-dimensional about stuff. What this gives every therapist is options to add to the things they already don't have. So half of my clinical caseload is online. I can't refer my online patients to local people I've built referral networks with. But this would be fantastic. And it gives me this, because what we all want, both sides of the fence, therapist and patient alike, is simplicity and a stress-free process.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the hours I've lost in my life that I'll never get back chasing up people's secretaries or GPs about getting their referral report, getting their letter report, getting their imaging. Someone's like, I gave it to him on a CD and he's lost it, and blah, 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 blah. So to have this one-stop shop, secure portal, and of course, there's no reason eventually, I guess, and I'm not trying to create work for you, but you could always add other providers to this sort of system who might bring their own sort of, so you could use those existing providers if they had the capability to link in some ways. But as far as certainly anyone who's either got no referral network, suddenly they do. And of course, what you could do with this is, I guess, some of the providers on Scan are independent providers who are affiliated to them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason you can't end up, when it shows you in such detail all of the places these people could get imaging. If you're looking at making local connections, it's spoon feeding you people to make connections with.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that really resonated with me, and I think that this is kind of up your street, Ollie, is that the people that aren't carrying the chartered physiotherapist badge, and some incredible therapists that don't have the kind of like chartered physiotherapists that maybe wouldn't be allowed to refer, and now have got an option to?
Yeah, I mean, there's no hard and fast rules around this stuff. It really varies. It depends on the recipient scanning centre as to who they are and aren't willing to accept referrals from. And a lot of that is dependent on trust. There's no reason why they can't accept a referral from any therapist. But I think sometimes, you know, if it's from a profession that they're more familiar with, then that trust relationship might be easier to build. Or, you know, it might just be an admin person looking at a policy that says in black and white, you know, without any room for any wiggle room in there. I think the other thing this does is if you've got a local existing relationship with a scanning centre, that's all well and good, but that could just be one location, one pricing structure, and that's it. This encourages patient choice, so they can go onto there. They might be able to find a scanning centre that's more convenient for them, it's close to work, whatever else, but they can also shop the market. And if your scanning centre that you normally refer to could be more or less expensive than some of the options on scan.com.
And
I tell you what else on that one, Ollie, and this happened this week to me. One of the centres I use has currently got a 7-week waiting list.
Yeah. So
now suddenly I have options to expedite that access, particularly if it's someone that I'm a little bit worried about. I've got an insurance policy here as well.
Nice. Awesome. So we've got sort of 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to take 5 minutes to canter through some of the new features that are going to be released in Rehab Guru 6.1, which will be hitting the streets in approximately 1 week. You'll hear about it via email and social media. But we have been extending out a lot of the patient management tools, for example, being able to add cases so that when you create a case, you would then be able to add notes to a particular case. So when you create a case, it is either open, closed, can optionally have a diagnostic code. And then you would create a treatment note, and then you assign a treatment note to a particular case. And the same goes for your exercise prescriptions, that when you select a patient that has got some cases, you would select the case that you're assigning that exercise prescription against. Now, that might not mean a lot to people, and you've got the option of not using cases at all. However, in the future, this has got some quite far-reaching possibilities, being able to audit by case, being able to aggregate all of that data against a certain diagnostic code. For example, if we had diagnostic code for an Achilles, then we can understand the exercises that were assigned to that diagnostic code, the how they progressed, because we can do all the charting and gather all of the data against those people who did well, who didn't do well.
Will that tie into outcomes as well, Si, for the outcome measures? So we'll be able to look at your, say, average outcomes for a particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I will jump into another account. So if we just go to in the reporting section, I will just go back a long time for this patient because I've not done any sample data for ages.
Because that'd be huge if you could pull across your organization. Well, what's our average outcome on an ACL?
Yeah,
plucking some stuff in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we do reporting on 2 levels. There is the individual patient reporting, and then we've got these reporting filters down the left-hand side. And we'll be adding to these reporting filters where you can sort of select by case, same on a prescription level. So thinking about what we do at a low level and then abstracting that out to be able to do the 10,000-foot view down on your caseload. So that's one cool feature. The next one was being able to essentially promote a form into it being a treatment note. So, for example, if you send out somebody's new patient questionnaire as a form. They fill out that. We don't want that to sit in the form section. We might want to promote that into a treatment note. So you can switch from the forms and then turn it into a treatment note. So that's quite cool. Files is something that we've had for the longest time, just at a note level, where you can upload files to a treatment note, but we're also adding files at a client level. So if you've got for example, an imaging report, something like that, and you just want to drop it onto the client section rather than it being embedded within a note, you can do that now as well. But we'll also show you the client notes we'll also show you the note files. So we'll kind of dive into all of the treatment notes and show you those, but then we'll also show you notes from a client level. That sounds really complicated as I say out loud, but it's really not. It's just kind of client notes or notes attachments, sorry. What else have we got? Static forms. So on the customize page, we'll very soon be able to customize a little feature for you. Actually, Ollie, I know you requested this a week or so ago. Patients' bookings. So their calendar bookings, appointment bookings, those are all now branded. So it'll pull in the same branding from the customize section, and those will be nicely branded so that they don't get emails from Rehab Guru. And then I can say, who the hell's Rehab Guru? I thought I booked in with Rehab. So that's all done. And then we're also being able to edit client emails for everything. So that would be a questionnaire, a form request, a booking request, booking confirmation, and so on. So what that allows you to do is use things like a static form link. And a static form is just a URL or like a web link that never changes. And when you send these to patients, you can rely on that link never changing. So you could add it to your booking form, such as, this is the kind of pre-appointment COVID screening or something like that. And then they'll be able to fill it out. And within the responses section, you will have all of your responses that have been sent into your inbox. And then you can just assign those to patients. So that's a nice way of gathering data on autopilot as they just click the links within the booking. Something in the chat. Cool. No problem, Keith. What other stuff have I got on here? Last couple of ones. Auto-save on notes. So when you're typing your treatment notes, they auto-save after a couple of seconds. So those will no longer be lost. We've added a whole host of import tools. So I can show you these on this account. These won't show up for on your accounts. What you will have now is an export capability. So I think anybody who knows Rehab Guru and kind of me and Dave is that we're pretty keen on kind of freedom of data, GDPR. We kind of cover off all of the certifications in that respect, as well as user choice. If you want to export your data, just click on the button and it's out. You don't need to send in a request to us. Your information is all there, freely available. That works both ways. And we have a whole host of bulk import tools now. So we have a number of people migrating from other clinical software to use us, and we're able to import your data really quickly and easily. So we can do clients, notes, appointments, attachments, and so on. So that just makes things nice and easy if you are migrating from an existing provider to Rehab Guru and all of the benefits that come with that. So just reach out to us if you want to move over to us. Shameless plug there. We'll get on to shameless plugs in a moment. And lots of kind of boring stuff, lots of performance improvements in 6.1, lots of bug fixes, usual stuff in the software world.
Can I put you on the spot with a feature site? Am I allowed to throw a grenade at you?
Go for it.
It's something I've requested before. You probably know what I'm about to say now, but the ability to set tasks or next actions on a patient file. So, for instance, I've assessed Jamesy, and we've done his initial assessment. I promised him that I'm going to follow up and check in on his progress with an email or a phone call in 3 weeks.
Yep.
I set that as an action, and then it appears on some kind of dashboard with today's task.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's in development. It's so you'll probably know this about us, but rather than us being really opinionated about how a feature should run, you know, the exact same happens with our treatment notes. We don't just give you soap notes. We kind of give you a full designer so that you can build whatever template you want to input your data. The same goes for any sort of to-do-ist kind of application where you add your actions. So we want to be able to maybe set a deadline. We want to maybe be able to tag a patient within it. We want to be able to do it both at a patient level, but also at a dashboard level. So if we've got it here are your, you know, today's actions, check them off, and so on. So yeah, it's been worked. That's kind of like let the cat out of the bag with the surprise feature. No problem. No problem. But yeah, there's lots of stuff in development.
That'd be a game changer for us at Rehab, I've got to say. Because obviously we're people that we're managing, there's a lot to do.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting from a so would it be a to-do action, or would it be an action to be performed on the patient, or would it be on the account?
Yeah, it's on the account. So it's it would essentially replace a CMS like HubSpot or Notion or whatever else, and you're just bringing it into what your clinical management system already is, and you're just keeping everything in one place.
Yeah. Lots of work being done on the integrations. A lot of people don't know about the Zoom integration. You know, we're using Zoom. It's pretty popular for meeting platform, obviously. When you create an appointment, it auto creates the Zoom meeting and sends that to the patient. So, you know, when you open up Zoom, it's already got all of your appointments if you're running kind of remote sessions. We'll be rolling out the MailChimp integration soon, and you know, if you've got other marketing email providers, then we will also add those. Notes, forms, download charts. Oh yeah, so you can also now download your charts. So if you've got a nice sort of visual chart of a patient's progress over time, there's now some download buttons, so you can download that to CSV if you want to do any, you know, other kind of statistical analysis, or you can download it as an image, add that to your treatment notes. Quite popular in the NHS when they're uploading a progress chart to systems such as EMIS. Okay, there's been a couple of questions. I'll just dive into these now as we're starting to run over. Guys, you need to start thinking about some sweet picks. Have you got some sweet picks? Sweet picks are things that you would recommend to others, not what Dave thought they were, which is basically sweet picks to send to me. I was like, no. I thought I was going to be some.
So I've been told he's not allowed to share them with anyone else.
I'll DM you, Dave.
Okay. Ollie, you already use Rehab Guru. Questions come in. People obviously follow you, love your views on exercise on Twitter, and this is what has come in as a question. And they're interested to know what you would gain from using Rehab Guru.
What do we gain? What would I lose? We use Rehab. Jeez, it's late, isn't it? We use Rehab Guru to essentially run almost everything in the background of Rehab. So everything's done through Guru, including our telehealth appointments. So we use the platform through there, and it allows us to keep everything in one place, run it smoothly, have consistency. We would have to probably have about 3 or 4 different software subscriptions or solutions in order to replace what Guru does for us. So it's pretty invaluable, really, to have what we've got all in one place.
Cool.
And we used it from the outset for
Nice.
that reason, because we knew that that's what it could do.
Jamesy, have you got any?
I just think with therapists always need to keep focused that what we want to do is see people and help people. And things like Rehab Guru allow you to do that with the least amount of stress and disruption to the things that you want to do and do best. So it fundamentally increases your ability to perform your tasks, but at ground zero level just allows you to do what you need to do by saving you all the time, hassle, and admin that if you don't have a system like this, you're spinning plates in whatever unproductive way you are, which might cost you 2 patients a week, or finishing 30 minutes earlier, or just feeling at the end of the week that you've not quite given the gold standard that you wanted to people over the course of the week.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like our core mantra, is to get stuff out of clinicians' way so that they can do what they do best. And that's where a lot of our remote management features are kind of targeted, so that when you do get that very critical face-to-face or clinician time with your patient, you can really capitalize on that. You're not there doing, kind of background information, doing, various information on how things have been, how everything's going. You've actually armed with a load of data to be able to jump straight in and actually capitalize upon that really critical time with the patients.
The ability to build out and customize those systems and processes as well is really good from a clinical governance perspective. So, I know that 5 minutes prior to a patient's appointment on Rehab, I can click onto their file and that their questionnaire is going to be complete. That's standardized. That's got all the information on it that I need to know before undertaking that appointment. It's consented them. It's done everything that I need to do. And that's the same for every single appointment, regardless of who's doing it, regardless of when.
Yeah.
And that's so important from a clinical governance perspective. I don't underestimate that element of it. It's not just a time saver. It's a big compliance tool as well.
Cool. Well, enough bigging us up. So another question here: translation. Translation is coming. We're doing the entire exercise library in the requested languages from the NHS. Rehab Guru is rolled out in approximately 12 NHS trusts, and there's a number of languages within the UK. Urdu and Polish are the top 2 at the moment. And then we will be rolling out additional languages after that. Our approach to that is to rely on machine learning technology in order to generate translations for our entire exercise library. And then we'll be essentially working back the way through that exercise library, relying on kind of our awesome community and professional translators and native translators to, kind of vet that information, improve it to make it better and better. But it just gives us a huge leg up and offers a capability and accessibility to a range of other languages from out the gate, and then we'll work backwards to kind of make everything perfect after that. Uploading additional exercises very quickly can show this. On the exercise page, you click on create exercise, put in the name, select any tags that you want to have on that exercise for better searching later on, give it a difficulty, enter the description. Here you can upload video just by dropping it onto this area. Same goes for images. Click on save, and then that is essentially a new exercise, privately hosted, just within your own exercise library or within your team's exercise library if you're using our team features. How is the app better than others? Well, there's a great question. So I think I've got an opinion on this. Dave, I'll give you 30 seconds on this as well, because we've got a short period of time. But what I would kind of say that we're doing is we're targeting the features that really make you far more efficient and more of a progressive therapist, and just have a look at what software is out there already and what their release cycles are like. How quickly are they pushing out features? What does it look like? Are they kind of pushing the boundaries? What are they integrating with? So I think that's what our main strengths are, is our agility in the market, the speed that we iterate through features and listen to our customers. Average customer support time at the moment is in the region of 23 minutes to get a response. A lot of the time it's within a couple of minutes. So support, progress on the platform. Dave, what have you got?
Most of the feedback that I get from our users, which is positive, is the library. People love the fact that if they request an exercise, it's either in the library or we create it in the library. The library looks entirely different from other people. It's not just white middle class models, and the monitoring and tracking that we haven't had time to go through today, but checking on compliance, checking on pain scores, sleep quality, it just improves clinical reasoning when you've got extra information. And it also is really helpful for motivating the clients, the patients, and comparing that with other software. They don't have that tracking capability, and most of them don't even have an app for patients to go on that will allow them to set their reminders, have their telehealth appointment through there, look at their step count, track their progress over the previous weeks, because all of those things really engage people. They really motivate people. And hopefully if you can harness that, then it boosts your reputation, gets you better results. And all of that is just going to help to build your clinic.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's something that we're both really passionate about, is trying to make the clinician look awesome and us take a back seat. So make you have some shiny software, nice booking experience, make the design look really nice, and then we'll just get out of the way and try and make you look awesome. Okay, right, we're on to picks. Sweet picks. This is something that we're bringing to the party to tell everybody else about. Are you guys ready? Awesome. Mike, what's awesome in your life?
I've got one sweet pick, which is on topic for you guys tonight. A dear friend of both Dave Size and myself, Dr. John Houghton, who's a consultant rheumatologist, sports medical clinician as well. He did a great podcast on the Lunge and Lift podcast, episode 14, to scan or not to scan. And it's on topic to what we've talked about tonight, with lots of context and nuance about when you should, when you shouldn't, what's appropriate, what's not. That's definitely worth a listen to anyone. What I would add, it's a brand new sweet pick, which I just thought of now. It's to support the question or the answer you guys gave about why people should choose Rehab Guru over others. We've not touched on this, but for 3 years, I was part of the team working for effectively a rival software service to therapists. And categorically, I know from the other side of the fence that for the working therapist, the number one thing you should be looking for and need to look for is the support you get from the people. We can easily get dazzled by bright lights and shiny things, but it's people being there to help you with your problems in advance and reactively when they happen. And Rehab Guru stand out from the crowd. And that's me speaking from behind the curtain as well as a therapist to therapist. So definitely Rehab Guru should be your weapon of choice, because they are exactly on point with what they've been saying. That's my 2 sweet picks.
Awesome. Checks in the
Jamesy.
post.
And the podcast with John Houghton is brilliant. It's really, really good. Explains everything that even a 4-year-old would be able to understand, but with incredible detail and context as well. Really, really good pod.
Ollie?
I've got 2 for me. One is sort of linked. Something that I started using recently, Zapier or Zapier, and a way of automating what are otherwise quite mundane tasks within your business. So just as an example, I've got a spreadsheet linked to my Gmail, when I tag a certain email with a label in my Gmail account, Zapier will automatically take certain pieces of information from that email and put it in a spreadsheet. And I don't even have to open anything, touch anything, or do whatever. I just label an email, and a particular piece of information from that I put into a spreadsheet. There are thousands and thousands of other things that you can do with it, different accounts and softwares that you can essentially link up using Zapier. But it saves me quite a lot of time with various different tasks.
So little known fact is that Rehab Guru actually has webhooks that can push data into Zapier. If you, we might push that out as a integration. It's kind of under the radar at the moment, but those that are in the know, get in touch and we'll work on it.
And you can use it for some really cool stuff. I use it. One of the other things I use it for is scanning Twitter for journo requests for our industry. So it'll look at all the tweets going out in the day. It'll look for a particular phrase or hashtag or whatever. It will then, again, put them into a spreadsheet for me and send me a summary in an email every day. So I get an email in the evening and I can look at the journo requests that have happened from health journalists and see if there's any that I'm interested in piping up on. But cool. Zapier does that for me. So I don't have to go onto Twitter and read all their tweets, which would take forever. The other, completely unrelated, just a really good book. Nihal Arthanaika, Radio 5 live host in the afternoon. If you don't listen to him, you really should, especially this afternoon's interview with Gary Neville. It was awesome. But he's just released this book, Let's Talk, which is awesome. So I highly recommend reading that.
It's awesome.
13, 14 quid.
You'll be doing some of the translations with pronunciation.
I know. Yeah.
He's a Spurs fan as well, Jamesy.
All the smart ones are.
All right, Dave.
One sweet pick from me. It's a book started reading by someone called Jacco Van Gas, not hugely well known, but Jamesy, you'll probably remember him from Headley, and that is his cycling jersey right there. So he was a lad who was in Parareg, lost his arm with an RPG, and I had the pleasure of working with him for some time. Took himself from what you probably will remember, Jamesy, and what many others could imagine as a very deep, dark place, and over years propelled himself into becoming a multiple gold medal Paralympic winner. And he's just released his book called Unequivocal. As much as I know him, the detail he goes into in the book is really quite amazing, incredibly inspirational. And I know that was a really overly used word. And perhaps just that when you have a glimpse into their life and you know what it was like, just to imagine how they pulled themselves out of that and achieved so much success. It's just really, really awe-inspiring. So shameless plug for Jacko on Equivocal.
That's nice. There's another one along those lines, if anyone's interested, by Andy Grant. You'll Never Walk Again. Do you remember Andy? Single leg, below knee.
Yeah.
So yeah. Andy was a young Marine.
Boot neck, wouldn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, young Marine, got blown up, lost his leg, and has ended up now as a blue chip company motivational speaker about his journey, how he's turned himself around to finally end up as the fastest 10K time in the world for a single leg amputee. And and very similar to Jacko, it's because they go down to rock bottom and dig their way back out, basically, is the moral of the stories.
Super. I look forward to reading it. Check it out.
Well, I'm ashamed of my sweet picks now because they're not deep at all or educational. They're just in the nerd world, which I live in every day. So first one is, if you're wondering how my video is so crystal clear and you can see every blemish in my face, then I'm using
You're a PCI.
Lumina. I actually cranked up the beautify setting on Zoom. So my computer's having a hard time trying to use the AI to smooth out all of the... Don't talk to me about beautifying because there's some just for men in that hair, Jamesy, I'm sure.
Not anymore. It's all hidden in a ponytail now, son.
Yeah.
I remember when I first met you, Jamesy, and I was convinced that you were Gavin Henson's twin brother.
Older brother.
The hair and the Saint-Tropez and the shaved leg, because you did all your triathlon there, didn't you? You were cycling and swimming, and you were quite a specimen. I say that to probably as much in envy as I do in awe.
So yeah, awesome webcam. If you're doing lots and lots of online work, doing appointments and things, then this is really, really good. Next one is Todoist. I've got a pretty busy life, juggling lots and lots of different things. And there's a kind of a concept of out of your head into a system. And I use Todoist on all of my devices, iPad, iPhone, and computer. So anything that pops into my head, I just stick it into Todoist, and then I can check things off and be far more productive. And then this one is super, super nerdy. This is a software thing that is only available on Apple, but it's essentially a tool that kind of takes over the whole computer, and you've just got a shortcut key and you can just type stuff and things will happen instantly. So launching an app, navigating between apps. If you saw me in the demo, I was typing in my email address. I just typed in 3 letters and then it populated my email address. When I type the note, I just typed -note just so that I've got a little snippet available. So things like that can really speed up your workflow. If you type things in your notes again and again and again, then save them as snippets, and then you can start to recoup lots and lots of time by using a productivity tool like this.
So
okay,
nerdy.
That is super nerd, isn't it? Anyway. Right, shameless plugs. We've done enough on Rehab Guru, but yeah, Rehab Guru is shameless plugs. A shameless plug from me and Dave. Guys, I know that you're both speaking at Therapy Expo, so I'll plug that one for you both. Ollie, do you want to tell us a bit about Freehab and where people can find out more about it, and also Basra?
Yeah, so Freehab website is freehab.uk, or at Rehab UK on Twitter, probably our most active platforms. Please do engage, get involved, share it, tell your friends and family, do whatever you can to get the word out there. Basrat.org, and at Basrat.org on Twitter. If you're eligible for membership with us, please make sure you take us up on that, because the offering is absolutely ridiculous at the moment in terms of value for money, and obviously Rehab Guru access included within that graduate membership. And just keep an eye out for the content and stuff that we're pushing out there. Fairly regular webinars now, more coming up, more planned into 2023, variety of topics, probably blowing our own trumpet, the most varied of any webinar series. We've got psychologists, nutritionists, podiatrists, we even had a dentist looking at oral health in sports performance. So if you want some free CPD, come and get involved in that.
Nice. Awesome. Jamesy, shameless plug.
Yeah, it's a very soft touch for me. I offer online or in-person webinars, workshops, one-to-one mentoring, group mentoring, whether it's generic therapy stuff or more specifically working with the endurance populations, your runners, your cyclists, your triathletes. You'll find me anywhere on social media as the endurance physio.
Nice, thank you.
Excellent.
I once did an Ironman back in the day.
Once.
Thinking about doing another
10 years
one
old, that one now as well.
Yeah.
I know.
It was 2010 when I did it, so it's 12, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, they've just done their 10th one this year because of COVID.
Oh, yeah, so they missed some, yeah.
And 2,500 entrants this year.
The only Ironman for me has got Robert Downey Jr. in it.
Dad joke from Ollie.
yeah. Okay, and to everybody else who's been polite enough to stay right till the bitter end with us, thank you very much for attending. We'll be pushing this out, so the recording is available to everybody, and just let us know your thoughts on this. I don't think we'll be doing stuff at an hour and a half long anytime soon, but if you've enjoyed seeing and hearing us chat about stuff, then let us know. If you like this format, then we'll do a little bit more of it. Any final thoughts? Awesome. Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate you coming on. Legends in the industry. Take care.
Yeah, thank you so
Cheers,
much.
guys.
Cheers,
Everyone,
James.
take care.
Cheers,
Good
Ollie.
luck.
See you soon.